Good morning, everyone. Texas Homer here with Paul. It's the Tuesday show. Paul, we've had some staff movements occur, more than we've had in 4 years. And really, we were living in a weird situation, anyways. It's strange to even keep a staff that intact for 4 years. But now we're back to the reality of pretty much every other major program. So, what do we need to do, Paul, to replace these hires? And you did a good job. You kind of stepped back and you looked at the previous hires we've replaced, and we've seen that Sark's been able to be effective there.
Yeah, we've lost 9 guys in Sark's 4 years.
Mhm.
And we call that stability.
Mhm.
Partly because we have Sark calling plays on offense and we've kept PK, right?
Yeah.
So we call losing 2.25 coaches per year stability,
Mhm.
which gives you some idea of what's going on in the rest of college football, right?
Yeah.
So this year it feels unstable because we lost 3 guys. Ultimately, that's just the new normal of college football, and you have to adjust. And the coaches that can adjust to it are going to succeed. And the ones that can't, and they're pissed off about the fact that, the NFL can now actually pitch a better work-life balance to their guys than other college coaches. That's part of it as well. So it's going to continue. Beatings will continue till morale improves. So the big issue will be just how deftly and how dexterously you deal with this sort of stuff as a head coach.
Yeah. So first thing, let's talk NFL, man. Why is the NFL slowly becoming a better option if you want work-life balance?
They have an off season.
There's
no recruiting. So NFL's got GMs. They've got a set system. They've got a draft. They've got combines. And heck, even quite a few of the position coaches or coordinators in the NFL, they're not deeply involved in any of that. So that's where the scouts and your personnel folks come in. You get a legitimate offseason. Now during the season, it's all hands on deck, and it's going to be crazy. But it used to be that the NFL season was markedly, longer than the college season. That's no longer the case if you're a successful program. If you're going to go deep into the playoffs, you could play 17 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Texas played 16. We went 13-3. Had we beaten Ohio State, we would have had a 17-game schedule. So, and I think just the constant recruiting and re-recruiting. So you're not just recruiting high school players or the portal, you're re-recruiting your own guys constantly. And you have to stay on top of them and figure out what's going on. Is someone sad or upset? Are they going to declare for the portal? Are they getting tampered with? Like, it's just constant. And so some coaches will deal with it. And some coaches are like, all right, I think I've had my fill.
Yeah. You better love it. You better love it at this stage of college football.
What do you think? Do you think there's some other stuff to add to that I maybe have missed?
No, I think the NFL is a better job. The only reason now, if you're like a head coach, right, it depends on your control freakiness. College will give you that, right? You're recruiting everyone and there's no draft, right? So you can amass as much talent, not as much as like a Saban did, but you can amass more talent. So really it's just your control level. But if you want to cease a little bit of control, man, it seems like the NFL is the spot. And coaches, more and more, you're seeing them be like, okay, this sounds a little bit better. So it's interesting. The burnout is very real. And all the coaches, they're not lying about it. Anytime they get asked about it, they're like, this is too much. We need better guardrails and all this stuff. So we need to start listening to the coaches, or we will continue to lose talent, coaching talent to the NFL, which is already a threat. But we've created this work environment that just burns guys out. And like you said, that's frustrating, man. Every spring to have to go check on your 5 stars. You didn't just get the win in high school and it's over. You're having to deal with agents trying to leverage you every year. It's stressful. And then there's no government mechanism because anything you try to enforce will immediately go up to the courts and get shot down. So it's just
the courts ask one simple question: are they employees?
Yeah, exactly.
No. Well, then you have no control over them. Thanks for your time. Thank you, sir.
So yeah, it's tough, man. I get it when the coaches head off to the NFL now. But also a point too, right? And you made this in your article. Our coaches aren't going down a level. They're not getting pushed out the door, going to G5 or going to be a head coach. Luckily, we have coaches that are going to the NFL, which is a good sign. Also, I enjoyed that because there's no potential recruiting overlap there. And then you had Gideon go to DC at Georgia Tech. That's not really the same recruiting pool. Maybe some Atlanta guys, but we're not going head to head. It's not a Bo Davis situation where he did the lateral transfer and then took his guys. So that's also important too. When they leave, you don't want them to take their stock with them as well.
Yeah, we've had one lateral in Bo Davis and one firing, right?
In Coleman.
Everything else has been a step up. Or, people could say, well, taking the head coach job at Temple, actually, it's like, no, that's a step up. That's a guy who wants to be a head coach.
Yeah.
And so he's got to go be a head coach somewhere. And it didn't work out. And obviously he's landed on his feet. I'm talking about Stan Drayton, of course. But yeah, if you want to be a head coach, you got to go take a head coaching job and prove it there. And, you're not going to be the head coach at Auburn right off the bat as a running backs coach at Texas. So, yeah, I think that's generally an encouraging thing. But I don't know. What do you think about the new coaches that we brought in at running back and a somewhat familiar name in the secondary?
Yeah. So Sark always subverts me on all of his hires. So he there's always these like underground connection that retroactively makes sense. Like, oh, this guy coached with Choate 8 years ago or whatever, but I could never
look at anticipate it.
Yeah, I could never know it. So it makes sense looking backwards. I don't know, man. I just have to go with, because a lot of these names I didn't know. I've never heard of this Akina guy. I mean,
that's right.
I want somebody with a little more experience, but we got this Akina guy. But so I don't know these coaches that well. I'm not going to lie and be like, I've had them on my radar for years. But I just have to trust Sark in these regards. I do like, not Akina, but I do like the younger coaches always. They can hit the road, are intense. Sark seems to try to generally hire in that kind of vein. He gets kind of the younger, unknown guy.
Yeah.
And then Akina breaks that rule. So I don't think Akina is really going to be a road warrior. So I think you're going to need your younger guys out in the streets. But as far as like, we've got a technician there, that's important. He was a DC at Arizona the year before. They didn't do well, but that's because they were totally unstable and going through coaches changes. So you have a coach that understands the big picture. Of course, he has a history with Texas. I don't know how much that relates to the modern recruit, because most of them were not alive during those glory days of getting DBs to the league. But to have a technician coach, someone that's familiar with Texas and that understands the overarching scheme is a positive. So I'll have to see on some of the coaches. I don't know enough about them, frankly. But we've had a good track. The only thing I ever questioned was Andre Coleman. And that seemed like that was more of a stopgap, and we needed to, maybe the wide receiver selection wasn't as great there, because I remember Sark was talking to like Holman Wiggins during that period and that kind of stuff too. So it seems like he kind of just kept Coleman because there wasn't another option. But as far as other hires, I've liked Sark's hires.
Yeah, Dwayne has been coaching since 1979. That's crazy. That's a lot of experience. And of course, coached at Texas from 2001 to 2013. Turned out a bunch of guys that gave us the credible title of DBU. But like you, I got to admit, I'm concerned about the recruiting part. That's, it's not just energy. I mean, he's 68 years old. I think for a 68-year-old, he's full of energy. But
I watched an interview with him. He's still pretty spry. Yeah.
Yeah. But you really want to like text with a 16-year-old when you're 68 years old?
Yeah.
Are you going to jump in your car on a Thursday night after a practice and go see a high school football game that's being, like, I don't know, man. Like that's I guess people are saying other people will pull up his slack, but we'll see, we'll see.
I think NIL helps in this era too.
I guess, you still need to build the relationship, right?
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, that's my only question is like, we know we're going to have a technician there. We know he's going to have a resume to point at. Also, too, I just got to see his flexibility, man. I need to watch interviews. What does he even think about this era? Is he adaptable in that regard? Is he kind of anti-kid? I don't know if he's kids these days or he's fully embracing it. I don't know. I would have to see if there's any like interviews.
Well, if he's still coaching, he's not grumpy and like, oh, I hate these kids nowadays. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
I think the flexibility issue.
I was saying his disposition is not even grumpy. He's not like a grumpy old guy.
No, I think I'm more concerned about flexibility of scheme, how open-minded he is, right? Well, the truth is, 2 years ago, when Arizona had a pretty darn good pass defense, and they were zone heavy. They ran lots of interesting scheme. They would put in like 7-man defensive back groups. That was Akina implementing all that. Nansen was sort of the brain trust. So I wouldn't underestimate the reason that he's here. It's not because he's a Texas alum and has a lot of history. It's because Johnny Nansen clearly said, we should bring in Dwayne. He knows what we need to do on the back end.
Remember, we almost got him last year.
Yeah, we were going to bring him in as like a special assistant, right?
Yeah.
Then they offered him the DC job. So
yeah, Ian told me that yesterday, that Aquino was like the shadow coordinator, like an analyst by title at Arizona, but was behind the scenes able to orchestrate the defense, which I thought was interesting. And yes, Elijah, you're going to be shocked. This is that Dwayne Aquino. There's a lot of them, right? Any relation to Coach Aquino of DBU lore? Yes. There's a lot of Dwayne Aquinas running around, so I can see how you got confused there. That was funny. Shout out, Jess. Appreciate you for getting in the chat, getting in the mix, man, and believing in yourself. Yeah, he thought, yeah. There's a huge staff to stay in touch with 16-year-olds. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd like to be in touch with the guy that is going to coach them.
Yeah. And
so not just a random dude on your staff.
Yeah. And also it's like we start like splitting these minds that like you can hire coaches that do both. Like there's coaches out there that teach scheme and connect with a 16-year-old. Like we get in these weird dichotomies of like it's not either or. We've had coaches. So that's the thing with Aquina. The technician and the schematic element is going to have to be absolutely huge because we think we're going to be lacking a little bit on the recruiting trail there. All Aquina does is eat tapioca pudding and kicks ass, and he's fresh tapioca pudding. That was funny. But, yeah, to me, I worry a little bit. It seems a little bit of a fan servicey hire. That kind of makes me, because I saw the fan base. Everybody was started going down memory lane. So I do have my questions are in recruiting, and we'll need to see there. How about the other guys?
Was it fan servicey or alumni DBU servicey? In other words, like guys like Huff and a lot of those guys are saying, bring in Dwayne.
Yeah.
He coached me
20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's my thing too, is like, yeah, it's great, guys. But that was Aaron Ross was in 2006. So that's the thing too, is like, of course the former players are going to want their coach, but I just need to see it, man. That's it.
Yeah.
And also too, man, you're hiring in late February. That we also got to fix this, because this is getting poached this late in the game is no good, man. Like theoretically, we're about to go into spring ball and players are figuring out who their coaches are.
Yeah. Well, certainly don't begrudge Terry Joseph taking that job.
No, it makes total sense. Good.
NFL job. He's a Louisiana kid, lifelong Saints fans. Like, yeah, I mean, makes sense.
Yeah. Am I wrong? He currently has 5 players in the NFL right now. He has the Stanford DB, 3rd rounder, Takario Davis. Didn't he take a step back last year? I can't remember him. I'll look. Yeah, he has some players.
The whole Arizona defense took a step back. They lost some guys.
Yeah.
We played a small role in that.
Yeah. Yeah, taking Nansen. What's interesting too is we're getting. I wonder how it works. PK, Nansen, Aquina, because now you've got like, and PK is famous for getting along with everybody, but now you've got like basically 3 defensive coordinator caliber guys scheme tinkering.
Yeah, well, I think that the division will be pretty clean. PK coordinates the front, and their job is to coordinate the back and marry it up. Yeah. And PK has flourished the most when he's had someone to take that off his plate.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. Before we keep going, guys, Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512, or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
All right. We talked to Keena, other coaches. How do you feel about it?
I don't know. I didn't know anything about him.
Right. Going into it.
Yeah. So I'm still figuring it out. I do get some amusement by people who write up, they averaged 211 yards rushing per game last year due to his coaching. And it's like, well, there might be more into that input than just who your running back coach is. But yeah. I guess you got to write. Go ahead.
People were doing West Virginia rushed for X yards per game. Yeah, they were like top 10 in rushing attempts. So it's like, of course, yeah, they're running more than everybody. So like, people were also just taking like wrong stats. When you looked at yards per attempt, they were probably like 10 spots better than Texas, around like the 50th range. So people were also doing kind of like stats that don't translate.
Or they have a mobile quarterback who rushed for like 700 yards.
Yeah,
in green.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. I mean, you got to write something in the paragraph, right?
Right.
I mean, and truthfully, I like the running back development is the least thing I care about for a running back coach. I care about his selection of running backs, like their talent and their ability.
I think he has that.
And then I want him to be a recruiter that doesn't just recruit running backs. He needs to be a plus recruiter at other spots, or in a few rare instances, you'll put a guy at running back coach who's like a second offensive coordinator, right? Major Applewhite a few years ago at Texas, he was a running back coach. It wasn't because of his extensive elite athletic ability as a runner. I think he still has negative 250 yards rushing or something at Texas.
Yeah.
But it was because he was sort of a second voice on the offense. So, to me, running back coach is what's the value add in the totality of recruiting, or what can you do in some lesser cases, what can you do to help the offense, right, in terms of scheme?
Yeah. And I think he did have good ability to ID running backs. Now he's able to go to the top of the recruiting boards too, which is always interesting. I like to see when coaches are able to go from having to pick out low 4 stars, 3 stars, which I think is a whole different skill set and sometimes more impressive. And then you get access to the 5-star calibers, and you have the NIL money to make it happen. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what the running back coach can do. Like Tashard Choice was able to recruit a lot of different positions for us and kind of point us to like, hey, you should check out this Atlanta DT or something like that. That was beneficial to us as well.
Well, he's going to bring new eyes not only to the board, but also to the room. So Tashard Choice, I think, was pretty much like, no, my guys got it. We don't need to bring in a portal running back. And everyone, I mean, me included, is sort of like, we need to bring in a portal running back pretty clearly. Yeah. I think there's a fan assumption that CJ Baxter is like good to go. He's not going to participate in the spring at all. And he'll be on, if he participates at all, he'll be on very limited use in fall camp. So if you think he's our day one starter, I don't think you understand the severity of his injuries. So, and frankly, he's been injured, basically 2 years in a row. So the notion that you would want just to sort of hold pat, I don't know, man. I'd go get a high quality running back in the portal.
So would I. I'm interested in the edge coach because he trains all the NFL pass rushers. That to me is probably the most intriguing, especially with the depth of that room. So you've got PK, of course, coaching it, but then you get a pass rush specialist in there too. That room is incredibly deep. I think that's super intriguing to me. That's most interesting position-wise. And then we're just going to have to really see what happens in the secondary. Do you have any? So I've heard a lot of people immediately kind of default to like, okay, Akina, the concept is like Akina equals man. But you were also saying too at Arizona, they're playing a ton of zone. So like what's going on there schematically? When you think of Akina, what do you think that translates to in X's and O's?
I mean, when he was at Texas, it was man all day, right? And the idea was if people want to play matchups with us, we have 2 safeties who can play corner, right?
Yeah.
his whole thing was the interchangeability. That's why you have a Nathan Vasher type guy playing safety when he's basically a corner or a slot if he felt like being one. Plus, Nathan Vasher could just do about anything on a football field. But yeah, he was all man all the time. But at Arizona with Nansen, when they had success 2 years ago, with frankly a not super talented defense, they had a couple of guys, but man for man, not exactly elite. Yeah. They did some good stuff, and a lot of it was heavily zone reliant. But I think if Akina feels like he's got his guys, he wants to play man more often than not. And if you think we're going to have a pretty withering pass rush with Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, Ethan Burke, Vosick, all these freshmen who are coming up that we've forgotten about, right? And then you've even got the potential of Hill as a very good blitzer from the linebacker position. Yeah, it would make sense to go a little heavier man outside. But last year's philosophy was pretty successful.
Yeah. What was our mix? What do you think? How heavy were we, man?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I would think that we were more zone heavy.
Yeah.
What are we 35% man? I don't know.
I wasn't making you give me a percentage. I want 35%. I was just seeing if you thought, do you think we ended up going more man last year than we had in previous?
I mean, here's the problem. Like in 2021, we played more man than people thought. We just had the guy 14 yards off the receiver. So are you in man? Are you really in man?
Yeah. Homer knows very little about Akina and wasn't just putting UT dudes in the league, but Stanford guys too. All right. Let's look at Stanford. This is what I was looking at yesterday. So 2021, they had a third rounder. 2020, they had no DBs going to the league. 2019, no DBs going to the league. They had Justin Reed, third rounder in 2018. 2017, they had no DBs in the league. 2016, they had none. 2015, they had Jordan Richards in the second, Alex Carter in the third. 2014, they had one in the fifth. So this is what I was looking at yesterday. They have some DBs in the league. Not a ton of it was super recent. Cool. Let's move forward. So he has guys, and he's gonna have guys, right? He's gonna get probably first rounders in the league at Texas. I'm not saying that he can't get guys into the league. I'm saying that I've seen everything on Twitter that was quoted was all of his first rounders in the aughts. That's all I was saying.
Have you gone back and looked at his time with the Calgary Stampeders in 1980?
No, I just went back and looked at Texas and Stanford yesterday.
All right. Well,
yeah. If
we go to 3-down football, his insight could be valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you're in a wait and see pattern with the new coaches, it seems like, because we don't have a ton of intel on them.
We don't have. I mean, the guy I was able to research the most was Mark Orfe. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, the guy from Rutgers.
Yeah.
And I did my research. I was like, okay, sounds good. Akina, I don't know. I don't know what the intention is with him. Maybe just be the old wise owl on the staff. I don't know.
Stabilizing force, technique driven. We have a lot of youth, so maybe he provides that kind of stabilization.
I mean, look, so I think the elephant in the room is that he didn't jibe very well with Manny Diaz, to the extent that he sort of did what he wanted to do in his kingdom and didn't necessarily marry it to cover 3. But that might have been a personal issue. It might have been, Mac Brown's, frankly, lack of leadership. You can't allow staff members to bicker or undercut each other about philosophy. Or maybe you should. Ohio State argued the entire year until their DC won, and then they won the national title. And then Knowles left.
And they kicked him out.
Pissed off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that happened. And, for people that are down on Manny Diaz, well, he was very successful defensively everywhere but UT. So, there was other stuff at work there.
Yeah. But let's look at the coaches that have left. What happened, right? We had Coleman got fired, and I didn't even know this. He disappeared from football for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
I never kept up with him. Drayton goes to be a head coach. That's a promotion. Jeff Choate, Nevada, promotion.
Promotion, head coach.
Bo Davis, lateral move to LSU. Not a step down, but not a step up. Terry Joseph, NFL, promotion. Blake Gideon, DC, promotion.
Yep.
Tashard Choice, running back coach in the NFL, promotion, and gets to be back with Gibbs. Brennan Marion, OC at UNLV, head coach at Sacramento State. So the records here is good.
Yeah.
So solid. We'll just have to see, man. A lot of these are young coaches minus Akina, so we don't really know what we're getting here.
Well, here's the constant. Steve Sarkisian.
Right.
He's 38-17 at Texas. He's 25-5 over his last 2 years. Here's his record. 5-7, disaster. 8-5, we were that plucky team that everyone's like, God, 2 plays a certain direction, and Texas is a 10-win team, right?
Yeah.
We were that team, right?
Yeah.
And then we went 12-2, college football Final Four, 13-3, college football Final Four. So the trajectory is pretty good. And for all the talk as Steve Sarkisian is the whiz kid, offensive guy, yeah, our offense is going to be awesome, but can he handle the bigger stuff of being a coach? Is he just a glorified coordinator? He struggled at Washington and USC to not be 7-win Sark or whatever the nonsense was. And what we found out is that he's probably a better total football program coach than just a pure offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
While having to coach the entire program. Meaning, if Sark only had to be an offensive coordinator, I bet we'd be even better, right? But he's got a lot of other stuff on his plate. But what we're finding is he's a great program builder. He's a great total football coach. He doesn't ever leave his defense out to dry to serve the offense, right? You ask him, hey, why don't you go hurry up? Why don't you do all that? He's like, yeah, it does help. You can get some cheapies going everything fast, but you also can expose your defense. And I don't like to do that. So, as I've said many times, Sark would rather win a game 34-10 than 56-31.
It's an NFL mindset in a lot of ways.
It is an NFL mindset, as you've said many times, Connor. Once Sark has a game under control and he hits 30, that's his magic number, then he just takes his foot off the gas. Doesn't jibe with our marketing, but
right.
Yeah, that's the truth. And the truth is, the guys have been a very good program builder. So you have to trust that he's got a larger plan in mind of how everything fits together with this new environment, right? With NIL, with unlimited staff, right? We're going to be bringing a bunch of supplemental guys, and it'll be interesting to see what holes they're used to plug, right?
Yeah, his adaptability, I think, is his biggest strength.
Yeah.
Because, there's a lot of coaches that are just complaining every chance they get about the state of the world. And he's almost always like, yep, that's how it is. We have to adapt. You can tell there's some things he doesn't like he's a human being, but I never hear him just cry about it. He's just like, okay, I accept that. This is what NIL is. Okay, this is what modern recruiting is. But every aspect of the program is, like you said, his ability to establish culture was awesome. His recruiting frustrates fans early on, but always pays off at the end because he's not going to sit there and chase, and they end up getting their guys at the end. So he has this really calm, deliberate understanding of recruiting that's frankly impressive. He seems like a good poker player because he doesn't ever flinch in July, and he makes sure in December he handles that. On top of that, offensive coaches can have this tendency to only focus on their side of the ball and let defense totally rot.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. He also has a strange way of hiring to where he like individually selects all his staff. It's not really the coordinator PK that decides it that often, which originally in year one, I was like, this is a strange way to go about it. I don't know if this is going to work. It's worked. So he's done all of these things, man. And also on top of that, he's likable, right? So he's able to get the boosters involved, the donors. You want to give Sark money, and he's giving results. So now you double want to give him money. So he's been able to do everything that I think is really impressive. And then he represents us well when he goes on ESPN or whatever. I think the total package there is what's impressive. And on top of that, he gets us a top 15 offense without, frankly, like you said, without full effort and focus. So it's I think it's a top 5 offense if he's not running an entire program behind the scenes too.
I think it's the good mindset, which is, if there's a little snippet running around the internet for years of Jocko Willink, and the whole idea is good. And so one of his something happens that goes wrong, and one of his men says, "I know what you're going to say," and he goes, "Well, what is it I'm going to say?" He's going to say good. And so the whole idea is, lost my job, good. I get to start that business that I've always wanted. I've always talked about doing. Training exercise got canceled, good. We have an opportunity to go get a workout in. Like, whatever gets thrown at you, you sort of just spin it as great. This is an opportunity for us to shine in this area. I think a lot of coaches are like, freaking portal. Oh God, I got to go. Sark's like, good. This is an opportunity to reconnect with our players, position coaches. I want all of you to reach out to your guys, find out what's going on, find out who's getting tampered with, find out who's not very happy right now at Texas with their playing time. They need to come into my office and talk to me, because clearly I haven't done my job in explaining to them what my plans are for them next year or the year after that, or why they are in a log jam. And I mean, Sark has that mentality, and it's going to serve him very well, because the traditional coaches, because most coaches are creatures of habit, they're creatures of tradition. They don't like all this change. Like, they don't like all this stuff. And by the way, I handle change pretty well. I wouldn't like all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
But it's going to sort them out very quickly. And Sark seems to be a guy who can handle it until he doesn't want to anymore. And then he's going to go to the NFL.
And then he's going to go to the NFL. Yeah. And then, for sure. And, but that's down the road. I think there's two important things in Sark. If you psychoanalyze him right through his history, I think he had two important, new leases on life. Sobriety is one of those things that allows you to say good and appreciate the moment. And then also he has a ticking time bomb heart condition, right? And they had to crack his chest open and fix that. And he's pointed to both of those events, giving him that kind of mindset, because he's always, now you'll hear him, he's in these super stressful games where it's like, if you lose, everyone's going to hate you. And he's like making sure he's taking a moment to take the fans in, and he talks about it all the time. It's not some corny thing. It's a real thing. Clearly he talks about when he was young, he didn't appreciate this. And he was kind of just on the obsession with being number one. So he has this genuine, it's not the corny coach speak where they're like, appreciate it. Seems like he actually does appreciate his life and understand that the stress of this is a good thing, something that he asked for. And I think it shows in how he operates.
Well, if you watch some coaching clinics, the coach is just a series of bumper stickers.
Dude, it's exhausting.
And platitudes. And
have you read coaching Twitter? It's every morning. It's just these nonsense quotes from right down the middle. And the fact that people are like, wow, this is deep.
But Sark doesn't do that.
Right.
I mean, he has little catchphrases. He abuses the word intentional. That's a big catchphrase right now in coaching. Yeah. I understand why he says it, though.
You're communicating to 18-year-olds.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea is are we just going through the motions, or are you going to actually do the drill?
Yeah.
And you have to have some intentionality. So, Randy and I, Everyone Gets a Trophy podcast co-host, and I we text each other at random times, are you being intentional today?
Yeah.
But, I just think that you listen to him talk at a conference or something like that, it's pretty refreshing. He's just speaking like a normal guy and saying, here's what, now he's very into the, here's why we do this. Here's what I'm telling my quarterback to do. but there's just not the constant stream of accompanying platitudes and bumper stickers and, those stupid, did you ever work in the corporate world, Connor?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, for like.
Did you ever see the corporate art?
Yeah,
of like
quotes.
The eagle soaring, and it's like your attitude determines your altitude.
I had a sales job out of college, and that's all it was. And they thought giving us the motivation manifesto would result immediately in sales.
Or there's like a kitten on with it like barely hanging on to a fence, and it says like "hang on." And, it's got in the morning the zebra gets up. And in the morning, the lion gets up, and one is running to eat, and one is running not to be eaten. But whichever one you are, you better be running.
Any of that grind set stuff will automatically make me work less because it puts me in such a horrible mood of like the lame manipulation that you think it takes to get me to increase my output will make me actually decrease it intentionally.
See, I'm highly cynical, but I have adrenaline, like excess adrenaline sometimes.
Yeah.
So if you play like a Rocky montage, it works.
My best friend, dude, you can give him a Goggins video and he's ready to go. Like he'll call me and he cracks me up. Those videos do not work on me. They make me angry for some reason.
It makes you sleepy.
Yeah.
You take a nap.
Yeah, I don't need this. Just tell me to do my work.
You want to eat a bunch of carbs and go lay down. You're like, where's my hammock?
I feel like I did a workout just listening to a Goggins video. It's
Hey, what'll work out for all of our viewers and listeners?
Get your mortgage with Gabe Winslow.
Call on this guy, Gabe Winslow. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. Hey, this is a guy you should be motivated to call and talk to. Why? Over 20 years in the industry. He's fantastic at what he does. He's in the top 1% of mortgage lenders in the great state of Texas. He's also a mortgage broker. What does that mean, Connor? Does he work for Chase? Does he work for Wells? Does he work for Big Bank America?
Nope. He can shop around and get you the best deal.
He shops around to 70 different lenders and gets you the best possible rate, the best possible deal. He's also really sharp, former National Merit Scholar, got a law degree. He's a problem solver. This is the guy you want in your corner for the biggest financial decision of your life. Give him a call, 832-557-1095. Thanks, Gabe. Thanks for sponsoring.
Paul, so when you watch clinics, you're a clinic guy like me. My favorite one is when the coaches put up like their mission statement. It's always bullet points, but like our team is going to be this, and it's always they're going to be like physical,
tough,
hardworking, tough, won't quit. And I'm just like, name me one coach that has ever put up like we are going to be weak, disorganized. It's just like football coaching culture is so repetitive. There's like 3 innovators and everyone just copies them all the way down. It's remarkable.
Well, the thing I always joke about is anytime a DC gets hired, the defensive coordinator's like, I'll tell you what, the Texas Longhorns, you're going to know you played us because we're going to be fast, we're going to be physical and aggressive. And the funniest thing is like sometimes a DC should be like, we don't have great team speed on this team. So we're probably going to play a lot of zone. We noticed that we don't have a lot of good quarterbacks on our schedule. So we're going to lay off a little bit and let him make a mistake. We don't think he can do a 10-play, 80-yard drive. I think we're going to have a lot of turnovers this year off that. Mostly, we want to get guys on the ground. Don't go for the big highlight tackle. Just get the guy on the down. Get on the ground. Yep. And people would like revolt, right?
That's the guy I would want to hire because he's living in reality.
Well, and he's actually like looked at the roster. He doesn't have Colin Simmons at defensive end. So he's like, I don't think we're going to get a very natural pass rush. So I think we're going to play a lot of 8-man coverages, and we'll wait for other teams to make a mistake. If you did that at a press conference, everyone would be like, oh.
Yeah,
you get some guy who's like spitting sunflower seeds into a cup, and he's like, I'll tell you what, we're going to blitz 9 men every play.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens. If they throw the ball over our heads like a coward, we're just going to line up and do it again. We don't care.
Yeah. Paul just explained PK's mindset. PK does. Yeah.
PK's pretty calm.
Dude, PK lives in reality too. My favorite quote ever was the year after year 1 when they're like, so what do you think of the pass rush? And he's like, what pass rush? He's just straight up like, we were awful. Best were the demotivational posters. Yeah. If I was running an office, I would put them up because people would assume they're motivational until you read them.
Hey, pull up Ben G's comment about coding because I want to address this.
I'm behind in coding today. Gonna need to serve myself runny eggs now.
Very good Tom Herman reference. However, Ben, I'm onto your new world because I know the coders today are entering everything into Grok and AI, and you're giving people bids on 2-week projects and you're banging out in 6 hours. So I don't want to hear you're behind in coding today. All it means is you need to open up Grok and start doing coding with it, and it'll do all your code. By the way, people are about 5 years out from understanding all this perfectly. So I hope you make lots of money until you are fully replaced by AI.
I've tried, man. Like it gets like, I think they released Claude like yesterday, and it's the best coder at like, I can think like 75% accuracy. So I'll play with like Chat GPT and like, hey, make this basic HTML website, and it still messes it up. Of course, I don't have the education to fix it. That's what you need.
Yeah, that's the thing is the primitive
25% wrong.
The primitive LLMs are not going to be able to take non-coders like us and then like handhold us, right?
Yeah.
But a guy like Ben knows what to do. He knows the inputs.
Yeah.
And he can throw out a work product that used to take 2 weeks. He can do it in 2 hours if he's lucky.
Man,
he's like, why are you exposing us?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, but the rates don't change.
Did you know about Connor, did you know about the attorneys who were using Chat GPT early to try to cite case law? And Chat GPT was trying to be helpful, so it started making up cases.
It will do that sometimes.
And these people were submitting this to judges, and they were like, Texas Homer versus Maryland is not a real case, sir. And they did not find that. Yeah. I'm going to hold you in contempt. Yeah. Pretty good stuff.
That is funny, though. It's even scarier if they don't catch it. And they're allowing cited cases that never existed and just taking your word for it. That'll be tricky.
Yeah. According to Aslicken versus Hawaii.
Yeah. It's dude, the AI stuff is pretty wild. I wonder too, man, computer vision. We're going to relate this to football, guys. I would take pre-snap shots of defenses and give it to Chat GPT, and I would say, do you think they're going to be in man, or do you think they're going to be in zone? And they got it pretty accurate. But in the future, like in 3 years from now, you're going to integrate it like on tape. You're going to be able to know their disguises and stuff like that.
You read me my mind, man. Way to go. You are my Chat GPT, Connor. So the reason we were making this little segue was I was going to try to come back to say someone is going to call a game purely off of AI.
Yeah.
I mean, a coach is going to do it, or an offensive coordinator up in the booth.
It's really going to be a GA that revolutionizes it.
That's right. Yeah. But someone's going to call a football game off of Chat GPT or Grok 5 at this point, or whatever it's going to be. Yeah. Or maybe the Chinese, if they're not patriotic Americans, the Chinese AI. But I think so. Here's why it actually suits or fits that sort of thing. Because if you look at what those are, they're predictive models based on the quality of your inputs. Mm-hmm. So what do coaches do? They become the AI. They sit and watch film all week. They look, as you guys know, you guys may or may not know, they have cut-ups. So they'll say, show me every play between the 40s,
third and
3 or less.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, whoa, they throw the ball 58% of the time, and 38% of those are deep shots. Okay, that's interesting. They don't just try to run and get a first down. And then you keep that in your mind for the game day. But in the moment and the heat of things and everything's going on, and you notice one of your guys limping off, and you're like, is he okay? Is he going to get back? Oh, crap. Do we have to put in the freshman? You might forget that some of this. AI doesn't forget any of that stuff. So what if you just put in a sufficient number of tendency inputs such that you could actually AI a football game?
Yeah.
They might do as good or better job than a coach.
Yeah. What's hard with football is the low sample size. Like it's going to work really great with like baseball, especially because baseball's so segmented.
Yes.
And so it's going to be awesome with baseball.
What does he like to throw 2 and 2 to a lefty?
Yeah. Like that's where it's going to be awesome. Now
there's going to be 179 instances of that.
Yeah. Baseball,
Football,
or
there's not as many instances, right?
and it's segmented, right? You're going in downs. Like it's harder to predict soccer and basketball, continuous movement game.
Yeah.
And so football is segmented enough so it can't understand. But the problem is, like you said, like if you're in game 6, how many third and threes from the 20 to the 40, that might have happened twice, So it's like that's the problem too, is like the situations are so much less in football that the predictive part becomes trickier. I would almost like just train it on like every look. So it's like whenever this nickel starts hanging around here, what happens? Well, he blitzes most of the time. So it almost would just be like put all plays in and only look at their structure versus purely their situation.
Yeah, and there's also the human delay and the human input and the processing delay, right? Of we've got to, we know their tendency. Let's wait and see how they're lined up real quick. Okay, we got their alignment. We got their personnel. Okay, let's get the call in.
Mm-hmm. They're in hurry up.
And there's 6 seconds left on the play clock, and your quarterback's like, "Bah!"
Yeah.
So there's going to be some friction there, but I promise you, someone's going to use AI, and it's going to be a Chip Kelly kind of guy who just doesn't. He sort of, dances to his own beat in some of this stuff. Someone's going to do it, and then once those floodgates are open, you'll see other coaches.
You know what you could do that at the NFL data-wise? So you know how the NFL will end up doing like those heat maps or like those graphical representations of routes? Yeah. I'm interested in the future if you start to design defenses based on hotspots.
Yeah, your basic scheme.
Yeah.
Well, so I think that's happened in the NFL informally. Everyone in the NFL now is running 2 safeties deep.
Yeah.
And they're just basically they've run the numbers. They did this on a slide rule though, right? The old school way. And they basically said, if you take away the deep post and fly routes, it's hard for teams to go score touchdowns because you take away their explosives. And that seems to be holding up because, Philadelphia in the Super Bowl, they did overwhelm the Chiefs offensive line. The reason they were able to do that, though, is because they covered the Chiefs receivers.
There was nowhere to go. Mahomes can get out fast.
Mahomes didn't have outlets.
Yeah.
Most teams, just if you're an NFL receiver, they respect you a certain amount. Like, well, I'll concede this 5-yard completion because that's an NFL receiver. Philadelphia was like, other than Worthy, we don't think you have NFL receivers, and we have good defensive backs. So, in fact, we're conceding nothing, and we're going to sack you. And that was an interesting flip because that's not how most of the NFL have been playing that whole season, right? So, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's going to be offensive and defensive philosophies that will be crafted by AI based on heat maps. And, one thing, if you look like it's at old completion percentages, if you ever look at like college or even NFL quarterbacks back in the day, like it was very common for some of the great NFL quarterbacks to complete 57% of their passes because all of their passes were down the field.
Yeah. Coriel came in and it was time to chunk it.
Well, and there would be like an occasional screen, but there was no 5-yard stop route in the NFL playbook. Like they talk about like some of the guys like Raymond Berry, who are possession receivers who ran like a 4.7 40. He averaged like 15 yards a catch. Steve Largent, he averaged like 15, 16 yards a catch. He was a possession receiver. There's dudes in the NFL who average like 10 yards a catch, right? Just so you end up with these inflated completion percentages. But what they realized was hitting those 7 and 5 and 3-yard chain movers in the passing game help you score points. And they help keep your offense on the field. Whereas in the past in the NFL, your goal was to hit a 22-yard post route. That was what you were aiming for every time you did a 7-step drop back, right?
Yeah. Well, then the West Coast offense comes in and like totally figure out, hey, let's do horizontal passing.
Yeah, let's throw it to Roger Craig in the flat for 6 yards.
Yeah.
And if they don't stop it, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think AI would be much more revolutionary than the analytics revolution. It just might streamline analytical decisions. So it's I mean, in 10 years, it's going to be we can't even the exponential growth of this. We're not even understanding. I can't understand it. So I don't know about in 10 years. Here's my thing with the coaches. You have the younger coaches that adapt, and then you have the dumb coach mindset of like analytics. What does that even mean? I just coach football, which is the wrong way to look at it. You also don't want to be entirely based on analytics, somewhere in the middle. But it will be interesting. That's why I say it's going to be a GA that has to prove their worth. Because some coaches are going to be like, I'm not outsourced in that. And then that GA is going to run a simulation that they upset a team by 30. And that's what we're going to have to listen to. So I think the coaches are going to push back at the highest levels. But once they realize it's going to be a really valid tool for them, especially computer vision, right? And if you can do it quickly, if I can identify stuff quickly, you're going to have a consistent logic that, like Paul said, in the heat of the battle, you make mistakes. And if you can get it quickly, you'll have a consistent logic that you said on Friday, hey, this is our game plan, and we're going to stick to it because we believe in it. You won't get off course because your emotions or you're getting overwhelmed or stuff like that. I think that emotional stability that AI could bring, if you listen to it, would be helpful.
Do you remember the 80s when Deep Blue was a big deal in the chess community?
I wasn't alive in the 80s, but
okay, well, there you go.
I heard about it.
Before you were alive, there was a decade called the 80s. And so IBM built a learning model, a primitive learning model compared to what we have now, called Deep Blue. And it played chess. And Deep Blue eventually, over time, started smashing all the chess champions. And part of that is because chess is a finite game, right? There's only a finite amount of moves and things you can do on a chessboard. The board itself is finite. It's broken conveniently into squares. It's algorithmic. So it lends itself to math and programming. And so today, there's no individual chess player, even using irregular or asymmetrical tactics that can beat like advanced chess programs. So I think there's a parallel there for football. Which is, so right now, most AI is actually LLMs, right? It's a predictive model of, so if you say, hey, tell me a story beginning with once. Well, the LLM, the AI is going to say,
what's the probabilities of the next word? Yeah.
It's going to say upon, and you're going to say, give me another word, a time. And right. So true AI, true intelligence isn't limited by any of that. It's actually doing creative things. So true AI, Jess, to your point, and I think it's a good point, true AI, who knows if we're going to get it, is going to do asymmetrical things. Like 3rd and 1 on the 40, it's going to come up in a heavy set, and it's going to run a bomb, exploiting the one guy that it saw earlier was limping on one of the routes they covering, right? That's when you know you've got true AI, and that's when it's going to get real interesting.
Well, if you look at like Palantir, right, on the battlefield, Alex Karp, the CEO of it, he was talking about, they're using it to monitor Ukraine, Russia, and the AI notices which generals are the most effective, and it targets the most effective ones to take them out of this world. But the ones that are least effective, they keep them on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So it's like the AI could get to if we look at football as a simulation of war, which it is, it's a war game. Palantir has figured out the battlefield, which is much more kinetic than a football game that's segmented with, there's 11 guys, all this stuff. It's going to, if you look at it from a war context, it's going to be able to figure out exactly what you said. Hey, that wide receiver was limping. Hey, how do we keep this wide receiver that we know is not clutch in the game? So let's give him 3 yards, 4 yards, so the coaches keep him in, but we know he's not going to score that touchdown. So you start to like sacrifice, like in chess, like you say, you're sacrificing a bishop, but you're going to get a queen back. And so that style of thinking, when you bring that to football, that's what's going to be super revolutionary. It's the strategy within the strategy that I think AGI would do really cool stuff with in football.
And it's not subject to emotion. It's not subject to pressure, ups and downs, any of that kind of stuff. It just executes, right? Coldly.
Yeah.
And it calculates the percentages. Hey, if we fake a punt here, we have a higher outcome of winning the game. Mm-hmm. And the coach is like, if I fake a punt here and it doesn't work, oh my God, I'm done.
Right? They're thinking about exactly. They're thinking about
going to crucify me. AI is like faking punt. Yeah. Increases our winning expectation by 7%.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a guy you may have heard of, Palmer Luckey.
Mm-hmm.
He's a defense contractor, but he's doing it in a really interesting garage sort of way. He's the guy who invented Oculus when he was 19 years old. And if you see him, and if you guys look at any of his stuff, you'll burst out laughing because he wears Hawaiian shirts every day, and it has like a soul patch, and just hilarious looking guy. But he has similar insights to the battlefield, like you were talking about with the Palantir stuff, and it's going to incorporate a lot of that. So the battlefield of the future, it's going to be integrated to AI with the soldier.
Yeah.
But
how you can take that governmental technology and apply
it? You can put it in football.
Dumb football, yeah, and that's what I'm excited about.
Football and rugby are simulations of battle, right?
Right.
So, there's the famous George Carlin routine of the differences between baseball and football.
I haven't seen it.
Baseball's in a park. Football's on a gridiron, right? He just goes through it. We call quarterbacks what? Field generals.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's a reason.
And it's called the trenches.
Yes.
And so
there's a whole thing. Go look it up, Connor.
Yeah, I will. No, you don't want to do the entire routine. That's always fun when you have to do a comedy routine for one of the greats.
He probably did it best.
Yeah.
I do have this great routine Chris Rock did in the 90s. You want me to do it for you?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm definite.
Chris Rock is funny. Don't you think Chris Rock is funny?
I do. But
I can do the whole bit right now.
Hey man,
live.
It's our last show. Let's this is a good point. Amazon Web Services, what they've been doing with next gen stats is awesome.
Yeah.
And I like when they do it on Prime, they start giving you probabilities. And I don't know why there's this natural like fan pushback, because the probabilities exist whether you look at them or not.
Math exists whether you acknowledge it or not.
Whether you acknowledge it or not, it's still 67%. So them showing it has not changed anything. So it's like fans just have this weird, like there's two camps, right? There's either like analytics are God and shouldn't be questioned, or there's like these are just silly. And frankly, it's just most people don't understand them and they don't like that dissonance, so they just rather not deal with it. But man, the future of football, you're going to need to embrace technology and not try to be so old school, because it's you're going to end up falling behind. Like I said, some weird GA out at South Iowa Technical College is going to figure out, hey man, maybe we go 0-12 every year.
Yeah,
let's do AI, and that's how innovation is. Yeah, maybe I'll start a Bitcoin style mining operation to force feed Chat GPT Todd Orlando defense.
That's a good business model. Hey, contact me after this. I might give you some startup capital.
Yeah. But it will be fun, man. I'm excited for that. For right now, I just have to take screenshots of pre-snaps and say, what do you think is going to happen? And they'll go, I think it's man. And you're like, all right, let's see. And sometimes it's right.
So, Connor, this is why our lives are always fun. You didn't predict that we'd go on an AI tangent.
Nope, that was not part of it.
But it's useful.
It is. It's gonna be fun, man. It's I'm excited for it.
You know what is interesting though is I wonder. So there are things that improve outcomes, but it doesn't actually benefit the game. So what did we learn in the NBA? Like only shoot threes or drive to the basket.
Correct. Threes are mathematically more sound, but it's ruined the enjoyability.
But you watch the NBA and aesthetically, it's a terrible game now. I mean, I'm sorry to sound like that guy, but
yeah, it's not
kind of. You want to see Kevin McHale or Michael Jordan post someone up.
Ryan makes a great point. I was going to say this, the tush push, wherever you go on it. The point is anytime something becomes near automatic, because basically you're able to basically able to find the gap in the system. It's the same reason why we don't do flying wedge. Like in the past, it's because it hurt people, but also it was hyper effective.
It literally killed people.
It did literally kill people. But also you had 5 offensive linemen running. I mean, there's been plenty of examples in the sport where we found something that was so easily exploitable that you had to make it illegal. It's the same thing when like people fake a snap count on the defensive line. It's like, that's not fair, So it's going to be interesting to see.
I hope football is complex enough.
The shift.
Yeah, baseball shift. Mm-hmm. I hope football is complex enough that there isn't an easy AI solve that makes it less enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what if AI determines that you should only throw wide receiver screens and bomb? Like
the Sark offense.
Well, yeah. But what if it's like literally the running game has no return on value?
Well, see, this is the problem, is that is what analytics has kind of gotten to. So they did it in the NFL. I think only 3 teams were positive EPA in rushing all season. And so what it's come to is that your logic immediately goes and like, we don't need to rush. It's a net negative. But what they found out is kind of like a loss leader, that investing in this run or just brings defenses down. And so then you can score. So it's almost like you're taking a loss. It's that running is an investment. The returns come in the pass game, but you invest in the run game.
So you want to hear something wild that blew my mind? I'm not even sure I believe it, but I've read it and I've heard other like statistics, analytics nerds confirm it. If you run play action, like a play action pass, the efficacy of your play action pass isn't determined by how effective your run game was.
It's not correlated.
So in other words, you could be running 9 yards a carry and you'd think, man, when we do play action, it's going to really kill them. You're getting the same output as if you're getting stuffed when you run the ball.
Yeah.
That seems insane to me and counterintuitive, but apparently it's true.
But think about it. If you're coached on, these players are coached on keys.
Yeah, they're just reacting.
They're just reacting to the pool or whatever that is. That's how they're coached. And what coach ever says, like, don't play the run ever? Like, that doesn't happen. So, like, they're trained in practice. They're trained on keys. So you look at each play as an individual instance. You see why. And they're also saying you don't have to run to establish play action is what they're also, the next level of that is.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Now, I do have to wonder if that goes away with a larger sample of they don't run the ball.
Yeah.
Like, people will stop reacting like a border collie when you pretend to throw a tennis ball. Like, the third time you do it, a border collie just sits and looks at you.
Yeah.
Now, your Shar-Pei will continue to do that for infinity because your Shar-Pei is dumb. But your border collie is like, okay, I know what you're doing. So I wonder if there's any way, like, if you're 5 games in and this team literally does not run the ball, they keep running play action, I think that defenses would adjust, even if they're just that they have that border collie reaction. I think at some point they go, okay, you got me.
Yeah. Yeah. You would have to find the team that would do it. And I guess you would kind of look at it as, it would be interesting to look at like a 70% pass team, like how that starts to change things.
Well, so that exists.
It does. That's what I'm saying. You could look at like a 70%, like super unbalanced, and see how that works. But I think coaches are there's a couple of things working against you. Is like coaches are obsessed with stopping the run, both because of how they grew up, but also there's like an ego to stopping the run that they're obsessed with.
Yeah.
They're obsessed with situations. So like 3rd and 3, they're going to protect the run. And that's why it's like you should almost always do the inverse of the obvious there. Like, hey, go to the pass in that situation because they're going to key in on the run 80% of the time. But it is interesting that like the analytics have shown like the quote idea of like establishing a run game, all things kind of being equal and like a normal team, has no bearing. And that you could just run play action, play one, and it'll work. Because a linebacker is taught to read the guard or read the back no matter what. They're not just told like, hey, just sit there and do what you want. So it is interesting. Implementing that is where it gets fun. But I just think of the run game now as it's a jab. You're never going to knock somebody out with a jab. But the right cross is coming behind the jab, and you needed the right cross to land because of the jab. So running to me is a winning strategy, but you don't win from running. If that makes sense.
Probably against a quality opponent.
Right.
If you could just hand the ball off against a sorry defense, just do that and go home. Yeah, like
you could exactly. But you could also run against that sorry team too. Running is just like it'll get the game over quicker. The scaling of running. Like we saw it, right? You can run pretty well until you face Georgia and then it doesn't exist. So that's the problem too, is like the scalability of the run game at the top of the sport. It just like your run game just kind of goes away. Cool.
All
right. That was some thinking Texas football, Paul. That was some high level stuff.
That's right.
But it's fun, man. We'll see how it influences strategy going forward. Fans, thank you guys for hanging out. Yep, Clemson and the CFP. Yeah, run game, the higher you climb, the less likely it's going to work. Chat, thanks for hanging out. Paul, thank you as well. I'll see you guys tomorrow with the one and only Ian Boyd. Peace, y'all.